Hi, this is a Common Canvas YouTube collaboration, and welcome to the Pumpkin Patch Palooza. My name is Terry Woodhams with Let's Be Artful, and I am on this collaboration with a bunch of other wonderful artists, and I will be sharing their names here in a bit. And so I'm a paint party instructor, artist obviously, and a digital designer. And this is what I'm going to be painting today. I think I might change it up a little bit. I think I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it this time. But pretty much it's going to be something like this. And I'm going to show you how you could do your own and how you can draw it out yourself. The pumpkin is pretty easy. I'll show you step by step. All right, the colors we're going to be using, I'm going to be using acrylic paint today, and for my background I'm going to be using I'm using all apple barrel paints. So I have a Tuscan teal for my background. Of course you can use whatever blue you want, and then I'm going to put a little bit of purple iris in there, or any kind of a dark to medium purple. And then for my flowers, I'm going to be using this Diva Pink. Did you know that this Diva Pink will actually glow under a black light? If you've done paint parties with black light paint parties, you might have already know that. And then just some orange and some yellow. This is a jack-o'-lantern orange, any kind of orange, and just a regular yellow. Right, and then I'm also, for the foliage, you can use whatever kind of green you have, but I found that this green turquoise here is really pretty, and it looks like, it almost looks neon against this this purpley turquoise or teal background that I have on here. So I was quite delighted when I tried that out for the first time yesterday. And then black and white. Okay, so grab a piece of paper or your canvas or whatever you want to work on. I would start off with just a piece of paper just to kind of sketch it out first. So I'm going to do, the way I want to draw my pumpkin is I'm going to draw the middle piece first, the middle lobe first. Now, I want my pumpkin to be about this big. So what you want to do is I'm just going to roughly sketch a circle, kind of a squatty circle. I want a little bit of space down here at the bottom because I don't want it all the way at the bottom because that'll just look like it's sliding off. But I'm just going to kind of sketch like an oval here, just so I have an idea how big I want my pumpkin. All right, just really, really lightly. I'm just barely sketching it in. All right. Now I'm going to start with my middle lobe first. So I think I want the top of my pumpkin to be somewhere around here. It's a little bit above the halfway mark of my paper here. By the way, I'm working on 11 by 14 mixed media pad. I might call it a canvas, just pretend like it's a canvas sometimes. But so this is about my halfway mark. So I'm doing my pumpkin just a little bit above. It's going to get covered up with flowers up here anyways. But I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to make a very elongated letter C, sort of. And I'm going to round it out here in the bottom. Light sketches, and then I'm going to come around and make another curved, opposite, elongated letter C. So I have something like that, almost like a really very stretched out football. Now I know that I have this here for my outer edge of my pumpkin because I kind of figured out how big I wanted it to be. I'm going to make one more lobe, kind of dividing this section right here in half. Okay, so we're going to build off of not the very, very top, but just off to the side. I'm going to do like I'm making this line again, kind of keeping in mind this edge here. I'm just kind of, it doesn't have to be exactly in between this line and this line, but somewhere you can even sweep it out more if you wanted to. And I'm going to come in and attach it to the bottom of this one. Going to do the same thing on the other side here. I'm going to make that a little darker. And just off to, not in the top here, but just off to the side, round it out. See how I'm making just little short little strokes here. And then maybe I'll kind of round this out up top here. Of course, that part doesn't really matter, but if you weren't doing flowers on the top, you might want to have it a little bit more bumpy up here. Make some bumps. Make sure it's kind of a little bit bumpy down here. All right, and so that's a basic way to make a pumpkin. All right, so let's put some flowers on there. You can see how my flowers are overlapping the pumpkin a little bit. I don't know why I'm showing up there. I can show you down here. So I'm gonna have 3. I like to try to keep things odd numbers. And so I'm gonna have my main bigger flower kind of off to the side, not smack in the middle. If you wanted to make things very symmetrical, but then you get hard on yourself when you do things too symmetrical, because then you're like, it's not perfect. We don't want it to be perfect. So let's have our main flower kind of off to the side a little bit. And then we'll do 2 slightly smaller ones coming off of that. So I'm going to overlap my pumpkin here. I'm going to figure out how big I want it. I want this to be my biggest flower here. And I might even erase some of those other lines, those pumpkin lines underneath. And then I'm going to have another one just come off a little bit lower. It's still kind of a biggish flower there. And they're touching. These 2 flowers are touching. And then I'm going to have another one overlapping a little bit over here. I like to have my flowers touching. That way I don't have to worry about the spaces in between and what I'm going to put in there. So I try to keep my flowers as close as possible. Okay, then we're going to have, and you can arrange your flowers any way you want. Actually, you don't have to do it exactly like this. You might find that, it looks better in a different composition. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to put 3 smaller flowers over here, kind of like in a triangle. 1, 2, 3. So let's get those in there. I'm going to kind of nestle the smaller one right in between these 2. They're very close. You can even kind of have them overlapping a little bit. Here's my other one, about there. All right, and then I need some balance over here. We're a little lopsided, so we need to have some balance. So let's put these flowers down here. If you feel like you need to put another one up there, then go right ahead and do that. So let's see here. I have, let's do this one right here. And again, I have them touching. Actually, I want them touching this orange one. That way I don't have to worry about the space in between. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to painting. So actually, I want this a little bit closer. I want them touching. Okay, then I'm gonna have some foliage coming off of it, off to the side. So I have these. I'm just gonna put in these stems. And these might get covered up too as you put in your background. And I like to put my stems coming out like between 2 flowers for some reason. It just seems to make sense for me. And then maybe I'll put like another one over here. Oops. All right, but you get the main idea. So we just blocked in our shapes. Everything pretty much for circular shapes and elongated circular shapes. So you have to break things down into simple shapes. All right, so now I have my canvas traced out. This is how it might look if I'm doing a paint party with this design. I'll use my black permanent marker And then sometimes I'll actually, if I'm working with, if the design has flowers in it, instead of a black marker, I'll use a gray one, just so that if there's, especially like with sunflowers, and I might not want that black marker popping through the paint, because these do a really good job at showing through the paint, especially craft paint. And so I'll use a lighter color like this gray color or metallic gray or whatever for just for the flowers, so that they could still see it, but it's not so intrusive popping through, especially with lighter colors like yellow and pink. All right, I'm going to start with my background. I'm going to use this Tuscan teal. Of course, you can use whatever blue you like, or any other color too. I mean, we're going a little rogue here. We're not doing the traditional fall colors at all. They're almost like spring colors, right? Always get your paintbrush, give it a little bit of a drink if you haven't used it yet and it's a little dry. Give it a little drink, and then kind of dampen that off on your towel. All right, so we are going to fill in the background. If you want to add a little bit of interest to your background, take another color, like either a lighter version of what you already have on there, or I'm gonna just use a little bit of purple. I just put a little bit on my tip of my brush here. I don't know if you can see that very well. And before this completely dries, I'm just gonna dab in the background, and you see how I'm flip-flopping my brush as I do it? But just little bits, just to kind of liven up that background just a little bit. You don't want to overdo it though, or it will just turn into one other color, unless you want to change your color and make it a different color. Then go right ahead. I'm also going to, you don't have to do this part, but I'm going to give it a little bit of a bottom here. I'm going to go up the side just a little bit, just to kind of give it a little bit of a surface for it to be sitting on. You totally don't have to do that. If I was painting this for myself, I would probably just paint in the background entirely and then lay in my design on top. But because I am demonstrating how I would do it for a paint party, this is why I'm doing it like this. If I want my surface here to kind of look like it's maybe a table, I know purple's not really that realistic, I can take another color, just something really, really subtle. Maybe I'll just try experiment here with a little bit of teeny tiny bit of white. I'm just gonna dip my brush in just a little bit of white, and I'm just gonna go back and forth with my brush before this dries, and I feel like that's too much, so I'm going to blend that in. And I'm starting from the edge and going all the way across. I'm trying not to do too many starts and stops. This just adds a little bit of interest. I'm switching to my 1/2 inch flat brush here, and I know my canvas is already white, but I'm going to go ahead and add a layer of white in here anyways, because when we do our blending, that's going to help. You have to do like a wet on wet to do any kind of blending. I'm just going to go ahead and paint in the whole pumpkin with some white, and I'm going right over those lines. Those Sharpie lines will keep popping through. Okay, I am going to go back with a little bit more white, and right on top of that one lobe line here, I just add a little bit more white there. And then I'm going to dip my brush, just the corner of it, into the teal, the same teal as the background. I just got a teeny tiny bit just to start, And I'm gonna go right on top, and I'm holding my brush so that it's making it go thin like this instead of like this. And I'm going right over that lobe and going back and forth. You see how that blends that in nicely? It's not such a stark line. All right, let's do the same thing over here with just some white, just over my lobe line there. Dip the corner into another color. See, I got a lot more on it that time. All right, I'm gonna start laying in the base colors of the flowers, and I'm just gonna stick with that same flat half-inch flat brush, but you can use whatever brush you want. And I'm gonna start with my biggest flower here, and I'm gonna lay in some yellow. Go ahead and go on top of those lines. It's okay. And then I'm not going to even rinse out my brush. I'm going to go in with some orange. And if you want your edges of your flowers to kind of have like a scalloped look to it, then what you can do is you can wiggle your brush so it has a little bit of wiggly scalloped edge to it instead of just a curved line. All right, let's start having some fun with our flowers. There's different ways you can do this. The way that I like to do it is I like to make a bunch of little C strokes and my little flowers here. I'm going to start with the big one here and a smaller brush, like a number, this is like a number 5. You could use an even smaller brush than that. And we need to find a contrasting color. We can't use yellow, right? So we need to do some other color. Like I think with this one, I'm going to use yellow, not yellow, orange. And I'm going to make a blob right in the middle. That will kind of give it the impression like that's like the center of the flower and it's a little darker in there. And then I'm going to make a C on the side of it. And I like to make my strokes quick. That way I can have a nice little tapered end to it. I'm going to make a backward C on the other side. I'm going to give it a little happy face there. And then let's give it a unibrow. And then let's wrap all that up in parentheses. Then I'm just going to keep adding strokes, quick C strokes, working my way out to the outer edge. And some of them you can even go right on the edge too. But I'm not going to You can add as many of these as you want, but I think I'll just stop right there. Now for these guys here, can you see that all it is my paintbrush, and I'm just pressing down, maybe even pulling in a little bit, but for the most part I'm just pressing down with my paintbrush. I'm going to use a little bit of a bigger round brush. All right, I'm going to dampen my brush because I haven't used it yet, so it's dry. I'm going to give it a little bit of a drink. I'm going to dip into my green color, and I'm going to make, well, I always like to make one at the tip. So I'm not holding it perpendicular. I'm holding it almost parallel, almost, not quite, to my surface, and I'm going to just make a little, you see that? Just a little blob there. And then I realized, oh, I need to explain that better because I did not explain it very well. To have them come out at an angle. So see, I'm just pressing down. And you don't have to, but I like to, as I'm getting closer to the base, I like to press down and maybe even pull down just a little bit, and I can make them bigger. Okay, let's add some highlights. This is getting closer to the end. The highlights I do at the end. Sometimes I do the accent lines first, sometimes I do the highlights first. Sometimes it doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and do the highlights, because I was doing this as a paint party. Some people might be fine with the highlights and not putting in like black outlines, and so then they can stop right there. So we definitely want the highlights in there though. So I got my small brush, and we're just going to go in and do some quick strokes, and I'm not even minding where those other strokes are beneath it. All right, so we can stop right here. I think this looks pretty great. But if you feel like you want to add a little bit more of a pop to it, get out your black paint. I know that can be a little bit scary to some people. And if you don't want to do black paint, you can use a black marker, like a black paint marker. And so you could do it that way, or just a really small brush. Smallest brush that you can find. And I'm just gonna add some little squiggles. Here's another little fun thing if you want to, and it kind of changes up the flower and it makes it look like a different flower. You can put little dots in the middle. I guess those represent I can add more. I can keep going with this. I can keep having fun with this, but I think we want to stop right now just to not keep it too complicated, because I do want it to be something that anybody can do. You know, a paint party type of painting, not a very, no, not fine art, but fun art, right? So, all right. So I also failed to mention the other ladies in this group. If you've gotten this far, there are other ladies. It's not just me. There are other ladies in this collaboration, this Pumpkin Patch Palooza. We have Jeannie with Jeannie's Palette. We have Angie with Artsy Adventures with Angie. We have Lisa with Heart's Desire, Corey with Creative Roots Art, and Tanya with Hummingbird Paintery, and Kimberly with Lolly Doodle Studio. So I hope you watch their tutorials too, and give us all a thumbs up. We would really appreciate it. We can use the help to get this collaboration going. So thank you so much for watching. All right, see you next time. Bye.